Hello, Cubs fans, and welcome to a brand new edition of Cubs on Tap. I am Ron Luce. I am not solo tonight, even though I'm beginning the show solo tonight. I am joined this evening by Mr. Tyler Edmonds, but Tyler is currently saving the world, and I kind of mean that literally and figuratively in a lot of ways. I think a lot of people know that Tyler is a firefighter, and we were literally about to fire this thing up. He got a call, so he is responding to said call. He will be back before the conclusion of the show. We'll talk a little bit more with Tyler. But before we get going, first off, I want to welcome everybody back after the All-Star break as the Cubs take 2 of 3 from the Minnesota Twins. This episode is called Twin Dubs. Is it simple? Yes. Is it a little goofy? Also, yes, but it's because I made the title, and that's always fun too. Hey, you like obvious shirts. We like obvious shirts. See that little corner, little bad guy up in the corner there, the little QR code. Go ahead and scan that while we're live here today, and it'll take you right to Obvious Shirts' website. Code on tap sports get you 10% off, and you can get some cool stuff. I'm actually excited. I don't have it on right now, but Joe finally made tank tops, and Ron Luce got the PCA rowing the Delaware tank top, and I wore it quite a bit over the course of that week of the 4th of July. It was very, very exciting. Tell you what, you're not here to listen to me babble about anything other than the Chicago Cubs, so let's get into it as we wait for Tyler to rejoin us. Game 1 didn't go the way the Cubs planned, frankly. A 5-2 loss to the Minnesota Twins. Maybe there was a little bit of kind of that all-star break hangover, PCA certainly trying to get things going in this series. He got his first hit on Sunday. We'll talk about that a little bit later. It felt like Friday's game, they were just kind of waking up still. Colin Ray really didn't pitch all that bad. 3 earned, 4 in total in the start. Bullpen gives up the 5th run. Bats just weren't alive when it was all said and done on Friday. And that kind of rolled into a question that I have that I certainly want to present here. But of course, I want to get to our comment section. Hello, Brandon. It is good to see you. Long time no talk indeed. Shouldn't be long before Obvious Shirts has the Gate shirt. Yes, the Gate shirt. And we'll certainly talk about that Gate and all the things with the 2016 team this weekend. I completely agree, Brandon. I'm sure that is on the horizon here very, very soon. And hello, Raphael. Welcome. And a hello to you as well. Brandon also says PCA needs a day off. Use Kevin. We'll talk about that probably a little bit later in the show. But the question I beg from Friday's outing becomes, is Colin Ray still a starter long-term in this rotation? Or when the Cubs inevitably pick up a starter probably at the deadline, when perhaps one of these many guys on the injury list returns, are the Cubs immediately going to move Ray to the bullpen, or is going to be somebody else moving? And I beg that question very openly because I genuinely don't know. I think Colin Ray is one of the most underappreciated Cubs of probably the last 3 seasons, if we're being completely honest. Between the bullpen role, going back to being a starter, really he's been more of a starter than he has been in the bullpen pretty much in his entire Cubs tenure. And that's just been because of injuries. And he can do it. He's a guy that can very easily swing his way from the bullpen to the starting rotation and vice versa if required. And it just begs the question. I wonder what's going to happen with Colin Ray. Again, not a bad start for him. Just 1 walk, so it wasn't, he wasn't loading up the bases with free base runners. 6 strikeouts in 6 innings of work, so he still gives you a quality start by definition. Only 3 of those 4 runs were earned. So, I mean, it's crazy to feel like, oh, Colin Ray had the worst kind of, I guess, I don't even know how to put it. The worst performance, I guess, from a pitching standpoint of these 3 guys that pitched in the series, and somehow, some way, it's still good. It's still literally a quality start by definition. So that was kind of Friday. And then, of course, we move on to Saturday's game. Cubs take care of business. I don't know what the Minnesota Twins were doing in this series. I think that's a very key point. And you see why I think we as Cubs fans are a little spoiled. And the reason I say that is we have a really good defensive ball team. And Rafael asked, "How are you doing today?" I'm doing well because the Cubs are a good defensive ball club. The Minnesota Twins in this series were pitiful. And it wasn't just obviously on defense. Of course, there was a couple of plays, notably on Sunday with the Nico Horner triple and with the the piss missile down the line that the third baseman narrowly missed. There were certainly a few of those instances where you could have made the argument that they should have or made some of those plays, and maybe it's a little bit of a different outcome. Maybe it's not such a big blowout in the series in the second two games, but the Cubs took advantage of it. You also had the base running blunder in the ninth inning when the Twins did threaten on Saturday. And of course, that helped the Cubs kind of seal things up and take care of business with a convincing victory. Matthew Boyd was really good, man. I know we look at the starting rotation as Cubs fans right now with the amount of injuries, and you say, well, who are they going to get, potential playoff innings from? And really just innings down the stretch here in the dog days of August and into September. You have to look at Matthew Boyd right now and appreciate what he's done, especially since he's come back from injury. You have to appreciate what Shota Minaga has been in his last 6 starts or so now. He's been really, really good and was really good again on Sunday. And then you're also starting to get some performances out of some notable names. And that's what I'm most happy about. And you saw those same guys come through on Sunday as well. First, it's Shota Minaga. I think that the 7 shutout innings is incredible stuff from him. And I'll tell you what, good for Shota. I think Shota is sitting here right now in a position where, I think early in the season, a lot of Cubs fans felt like, hey, maybe he's just going to go back to Japan after this year. He is a little bit older now. Perhaps he's just going to, get a good pay, big paycheck in Japan and pitch in his home country. But if I'm Shota Minaga, the way he's been pitching these last 6 starts or so, I think he's lined himself up for at least a 1-year deal, maybe a 2-year deal with some pretty lucrative money. He's making $22 million this year. Maybe it's not 22, but maybe it's 18, maybe it's 19. Maybe it is 20 million because that's just the pitching market nowadays. For guys that can give you any respectable amount of innings when it's all said and done. It really makes you wonder what happens to him after this season. But right now, he's one of the most important Cubs pitchers in this rotation right now because he's been healthy, and lately he's been really, really good. And we saw that again on Sunday from number 18, Shota Minaga. But I want to talk maybe a little bit less about the pitching. The pitching has somehow, some way been this miracle run all season long where no matter who's pitching, no matter who it is coming out of the bullpen, no matter who's taking starts for these Chicago Cubs, they're somehow, some way, always finding a way to get it done and at least give the Cubs a chance to win. We really haven't seen the Cubs been blown out many times this year. It's happened a few, but not as many as it very much could have been given the state of the starting rotation with guys like Ben Brown and Cade Horton, Justin Steele all on the shelf. And somehow they've still made it work. And it's incredibly impressive how the Cubs have been able to make that happen on the pitching side of things. Now, where I stand is, and this is a funny comment from Brandon, and he's not wrong, and this is something that I know a lot of people are keeping an eye on when we start talking about the 2027 season is the potential lockout that's going to occur because, as Brandon says here, let's be realistic. Every player is going to be looking for Japan money next year, and it might be that way, right? Depending on whether or not we have baseball. And Darren follows that up here. He says, I could see Shota getting a 3-year, $58 million deal with the incentives that could get him somewhere to $65 million. And Darren, I don't think you're wrong. I really don't, because again, the pitching market now more than ever, if you can prove that you are simply worthy of pitching between 150 and 200 innings and holding an ERA below a 4, some desperate, needy team is going to give you money. Flat out, right? I mean, that's just kind of the way it is. And, 3 at 58 is just a little hair below 20 million a season. Even with the incentives, you can take them to 65. That's still just a little bit over 20 million a season. Like, That's doable, I think, in this pitching market nowadays. And now, granted, I wonder though how much that changes once there is more likely than not a salary cap in baseball, right? I think I think these short, high AAV contracts are going to become even more common. We're going to see them a lot more often. Where maybe a player like Shota Minaga is taking like a 2-year deal at maybe it's somewhere around like 40 million bucks, and there's like a third-year club option or something like that. Because again, a whole nother can of worms that we won't dive too deep into this evening. But I really do think Shota Minaga, if he continues to pitch this way now through the rest of July, into August, into September, and hopefully in a Cubs playoff chase, and ultimately playoff appearance, he's probably one of their starters right now. Um, and that's a whole nother thing that I think will be fun to talk about as the season gets closer to closing and we get to September. But Joe DeMonaco was really, really good on Sunday. Matthew Boyd, really, really good on Saturday. And even Colin Ray, really, really good on Friday. But there's 3 other players that I am so pleased to see how they've performed over the course of these last 3 games, especially. And that is Nico Horner, Alex Bregman, and Michael Busch. All 3 of them have been incredible. And it's a shame that Duty called, because I had this one teed up for Tyler on the little league tee to crush it, because he wrote an incredible article over at ontasportsnet.com. If you haven't checked it out yet, I highly encourage you to do so, about 3 players that this Cubs team's going to need to take it another step further after the All-Star break if they want to be true playoff contenders. And those were his 3 names: Nico Horner, Michael Busch, Alex Bregman. And he's 100% correct. Because even though we like to clown Ian Happ and what he's been this year in the hot and the cold, he still is produced at a level that is pretty close to, if not slightly better than, his career averages. Seiya Suzuki has still been a really good ball player, even though he has his tendencies of being a streaky player as well. Pete Crow Armstrong has been fantastic for the Cubs. Obviously, we've discussed it here at Cubs on Tap over the course of the entire season. I think Cubs fans in general have discussed this topic quite a bit, in the fact that PCA is playing at an MVP level so far this year. But it was kind of that next group of elite players that they needed to get going. We saw the streakiness of Dansby Swanson, and that's just kind of the player that he's always been, and we kind of expect that as Cubs fans. We've seen a really good offensive season from Carson Kelly, and I think that's been huge for this team, the amount of offensive output they've gotten from the catching position, really over the last 3 years or so. But seeing Nico and seeing Bregman and seeing Busch show up in big ways in this series, whether it be the Busch home run that Anthony Rizzo magically ends up with on Saturday in the right field bleachers. He's sat in the bleachers twice in his life, and 2 times now he's caught home run balls. How about that, Maples? And then you got Nico Horner spraying triples and RBI singles, and he looks like he's back. 2 hits even in that loss on Friday. He's starting to spray the ball around the yard again. He is such a critical piece of this offense, and when he gets going, we see it. 4 RBIs today. Like, how do you not get excited about a 4 RBI day from Nico Horner? And then Alex Bregman, who we saw start to pick up a little bit, and all 3 of these guys started to pick up a little bit right before the All-Star break. And I think all 3 of these guys needed it. They needed that mental reset, right? Whether it's Nico and potentially the injuries, or he hasn't quite been right since he took that pitch off the helmet way back in the San Diego series earlier in the season. Is he finally starting to feel like himself again? Alex Bregman, same thing. The expectations of a big contract in a new city, and not just any new city. You've played for 2 of the more crazed fan bases in all of baseball, coming from the Boston Red Sox to the Chicago Cubs. Managing those expectations and what is expected of you as the big ticket fish joining this team in the off season. He's starting to really settle in and find himself again. And Michael Busch, who by all standards has not had a bad season. He's still playing great defense. He's one of the best defensive first basemen in all of baseball. He's been getting on base at a really high clip. He's really worked on his plate discipline, in his eye for the zone, and he's taking a lot more walks, really elevating that on base percentage, especially against lefties. But there were some times where he was a little snake bitten, and it seems like he's starting to find himself as well. All three of these guys are going to be so critical to the success of the Chicago Cubs. And to see them all come through in big ways in this series was incredibly encouraging. It makes the 10-1 victory on Sunday feel that much sweeter, right? It makes the gritty win on Saturday feel that much better. And then, of course, even with the loss on Friday, you feel really good when you look at the box score and you see, multiple hits from Nico Horner and so many of these other things. Crazy stat to share here. This comes from Cubs World 80 at Cubs World 80, Cubs World on X. Nico Horner had 7 hits in this series in the span of 21 innings. He feels back, as Darren says here, and it's so good to see Nico looking like himself. Ian Happ has 8 total hits in the month of July. Kind of crazy when you really do think about that when it is all said and done, and how much those three have contributed to the success of the Cubs in a monster way in this series. You just love to see it so far. Darren here in the comments saying, we just need Bregman to be our consistent good bat. Doesn't have to be career best type numbers. I completely agree, Darren. Alex Bregman does not need to be the 290, 30 homers, 100 RBI guy anymore. Not on this Cubs team. He doesn't need to be that guy, right? Seiya Suzuki can be your 30-100 guy. I think there's a world in the future where PCA is a consistent 30-100 guy. Certainly you could potentially someday, maybe he's more 25-80 or 25-85, but Michael Busch is that kind of player. I think if by the end of the season, because Bregman hit his 10th home run of the season today on Sunday in that win against the Twins. If he's able to get to 20 this year, home runs, his batting average is somewhere around like 260, and he can drive in, I think he's got 40-something RBIs right now. If he can get that number close to 70 or maybe a little over 70 this year, that's what the Cubs needed, right? You're not replacing Alex Bregman 1-for-1 with what Kyle Tucker did last season. Now, granted, Kyle Tucker has not performed this season, but what Kyle Tucker did last year for this team wasn't necessarily replenished 1-for-1 with Alex Bregman. But you have gotten additional offensive support from other places, and that's allowed this Cubs team to be good. And we've seen some flashes from guys like Matt Shaw and so on and so forth. Again, this is a deep Cubs team, probably deeper than we've seen in a few years. I agree wholeheartedly with this statement, Darren, that he just needs to be consistent. If Bregman can be consistent, 100%. Maybe a few more RBIs would be definitely nice. But, he just needs to be consistent. That's what he's there to do. And you'd absolutely like to see it. Tyler, welcome back from Saving the World.
I just, not really saving the world, just, dealing with a little gas, how it be.
A little bit of gas. It sounded like somebody in our comments was dealing with some gas too. They said that their wife farted in their dinner.
It happens.
That wasn't the type of gas you were dealing with, though. That is for sure.
It might as well be, but
Tyler, what I've just kind of been rambling about here so far, a couple big topics. You actually came back at the right time, because this is where I really wanted to let you kind of take the floor and shine a little bit. Okay. Great performance from the starting pitching overall in this 2 out of 3 against the Minnesota Twins. Even Colin Ray's start on Friday night, still by definition, is a quality start.
6 innings, yeah.
6 innings, 3 earned. You got to love it. Just 1 walk, 6 Ks there. Of course, great starts from Boyd and Shota today as well. But the encouraging performance of 3 guys that you specifically called out right before the All-Star break as the 3 most important Cubs players that needed to get right coming into this, I guess we'll call it official second half of the season now, and that being Nico Horner, Alex Bregman, and Michael Busch. All 3 of them were spectacular in this series, and that's just kind of what we've been rambling about so far, is how good these guys have been and what kind of their expectation is now moving forward.
For sure. I mean, for a team, it's no secret. This pitching staff is a roller coaster. Yeah, The 3 starters this weekend was awesome. Great. 6 innings.
Mm.
If you get 6+ innings out of every starter, that's great. But as we know, this offense is going to have to carry this team in the second half. And Nico Horner, first month of the season, looked like RIP Ryan Sandberg, but looked like Ryan Sandberg 2.0, just
Mm-hmm.
hitting the ball all over the place. We know what he has with the glove. Michael Bush, you saw what he had last year. You saw his potential. Such a slow start to the season and never really picked things up. And then Alex Bregman, the guy that you signed, that you said, hey, we said, hey, this is the guy that the lineup just revolves around. And those 3 guys for the first half just really hadn't shown it. And so, yeah, to see that this weekend against the Twins, man, and Nico even in the series before, or no, just before the All-Star break, Bregman looked good, Nico looked good, and Bush looked good. And my whole thing was I was just hoping this wasn't a thing where, they got hot right at the end of the first half, and I hope it doesn't die off and yada yada. But hey, so far so good, right?
So far, so good indeed. And it's just been nice to see, because I think, it feels like Nico Horner's finally healthy, fully back again. Kind of, he's driving the ball the way that I think Cubs fans have become used to seeing Nico Horner drive the baseball. Bregman just seems to be more comfortable. Obviously there's tons of expectations attached to that huge contract he signed. And I think he understood that early in the season. Maybe he was trying to do too much. And when a player,
that may be, yeah,
sure. when a player sometimes kind of realizes they don't need to be that guy, sometimes the production comes then once they feel some of that pressure off their shoulders. Then, of course, Michael Bush, who I think has still had a very quietly good season by a lot of standards, but starting to see him drive the ball a little bit more. That home run on Saturday was super encouraging as well. Tyler, I, along with all of this, I think a great point brought up here by Big Gun One in the comment section. Bullpen. This Cubs bullpen is all over the place.
Yes.
And where I want to sway this conversation a little bit is now we are officially in the second half. We are just days. I mean, we're what?
What is it? August 1st?
August 1st or August 2nd. So it's
something
12 to 14 days away from the trade deadline right now. I think anything we talk about from here on out until the trade deadline is fair discussion, because it's right around the corner.
August 3rd.
So it's coming. 3rd,
5 p.m. Central Time.
Perfect.
Monday.
And
yeah.
It's coming, and it's coming quickly. This Cubs team's going to need bullpen. They're probably going to need at least one starter. I think one is probably okay, but they're definitely going to need the bullpen help. And I think they've got a couple guys. We've seen some of those guys. We know what Thielbar can be. We know what Webb has been this year, kind of an unsung hero, really, out of the bullpen, and some of the big jams he's gotten the Cubs out of.
And we know what Phil Maton is not.
Yes, we do. And we saw that again even today. A great place to throw him with, a 10-run lead.
10-run lead. You can't screw that up, right?
You would hope not. And the Cubs certainly did not. Obviously, returning Drew Pomeranz as well to this organization. So there's the clear need for relief help. I kind of want to start diving down this hole a little bit, Tyler, with you here.
I'd love to.
Who are some of the names? Who do the Cubs need to be making phone calls on right now to improve this bullpen?
So there is a unicorn that I would love this team to get.
Does he throw 100?
Actually, Ron, he throws more than 100. Mason Miller, obviously, would be something, because I look at it this way. It's not how you start. It's how you finish, especially in the 9th inning. Mm-hmm. I love Danny P. But when you can get a surefire thing in Mason Miller, just the problem with Mason Miller is obviously going to be the asking price. I wouldn't hate it if they gave up a lot from the farm for a Mason Miller, just because of he's got years on the contract.
Yeah,
you know what he has. Everybody wants to say, "Oh, I wouldn't give up your top prospects for a bullpen." I would give up my top prospects if it meant a sure thing in the 9th inning, because there's not many Mason Millers out there. There's really not. And I get it. It's easier said than done because one, I know I feel like the Yankees as well as other teams are very interested in Mason Miller as well. He's not going to be cheap. And there's also the possibility of the Padres saying, hey, we'll trade you Mason Miller, but you're also going to have to take on Xander Bogaerts' contract as well. There's been those rumors flying around. So let's just put him off to the side because I, again, would love a Mason Miller. That would be our, do you remember the Emmanuel Clase wish we had just a few years ago? That would be this and then some. Two guys I'm thinking about that I know one's been pushed out there a lot.
Mm-hmm.
These two guys play on the same team. Paul Blackburn and Camilo Doval from the Yankees. Those are two guys. I know Camilo Doval, listening to a lot of Yankees fans and a lot of like bigger Yankees accounts on X have talked about how they are just ready to fire Doval off to the sun and give him for anything because they just have zero confidence in him.
Sure.
Doval's a guy that he was an all-star just a few years ago with the Giants. He was, in my opinion, Emmanuel Clase 2.0. He was a guy that if we couldn't get Clase, I would love to get Doval because I feel like our pitching lab, Tommy Hotovy, could make something, just bring him back to life again. He's got here's the thing though I like about him. He's got a 97 ground ball percentage. Same thing with Blackburn. Has a 97 ground ball percentage, or he's in the 97th percentile. You know what you have in the velo with Doval. He's got the FU fastball. He does. And I know that's not everything, but I feel like those are two guys that I would love to see him go after. Maybe, at least one of them. But I just don't think, and I'll shut up here in a second. I just don't think we're going to see that other, as much as I'd love to see Mason Miller, as much as I'd love to see, there's other guys out there. I want to say I can't think of his name, but there's a closer for the Blue Jays who's been lights out this year. I don't think we're going to see that big name as far as a bullpen piece because in the past they've shown that they can take these collections of arms of guys, these misfit guys, as we like to say, and turn them into something.
Yeah, they're big fans of the island of misfit toys as the bullpen, and that's just kind of been how the Cubs have operated things for a long time. And Big Gun One makes a great point here. This is one of the best defensive teams in baseball, if not the best. Getting those type of guys that have the high ground ball rate is exactly what the Cubs want. That's exactly what they want. Just put the ball in play on the ground. We got the best group of dudes in the league that can get it done. And you saw a couple of those today. Bregman to Nico to Bush around the horn for a double play. And then another beautiful double play turn by Dansby and Nico as well. These guys got it, right? And I'll tell you what, and I think those are two intriguing names that you mentioned with both Blackburn and Doval. Fun fact, Blackburn, a lot of people don't remember this, a former Cubs farmhand. He was a top prospect back right around that 2016 team time before he was dealt off in some trade deadline moves. 32 years old, expiring contract. He was only making $2 million this year. So the way you prorate that, I mean, that doesn't do anything to your dollars and cents at the end of the day for the luxury tax. And then you look at Doval, $6.1 million this year as a 28-year-old. He's on ARB 3 next year. So you have another year of control with him as well. Could be an arm that the Cubs are really fascinated in, get him in early, and then you have him for a whole nother season in 2027 to continue working with him as well.
I just feel like he is a guy that you get him out of New York, the pressures of New York. It's a different beast. It's a different animal. We've seen that with a lot of guys. I feel like if you could get him out of New York and just get him to feel comfortable and just get him right, dude, man, that'd be nasty.
That would be nasty. That would be really nasty. And Tyler, I'll tell you this, and I want to go to our comment section here and share some of these before I continue this thought here. Darren says, know that there's the need for another high-quality starter, but, man, something tells me they should really keep Shaw because there's a lot of trade speculation surrounding Shaw. Jeff Agris just put out a piece this evening with some quotes from Shaw about he knows his name's out there and he just doesn't care to see it right now. He's just focusing on helping the Cubs and trying to be a big leaguer and be healthy and help them get some things done. And this team is a very deep position player team. There's a lot of depth there, as Big Gun One said. They need a bullpen. They need at least one starter. And he says Wiggins could be on the big league roster. And that's kind of where I take that thought, Tyler, because I think another reason you're not going to see the Cubs give away everything to go get a Mason Miller, and maybe they do take a couple more, high calculated swings on guys like Doval or Blackburn and so forth, is because I think in a perfect world, the Cubs are able to make the playoffs, right, with this current group. And you've got the likes of Matthew Boyd, of Shota Imanaga, of whomever else starting games. Probably one, if they go out and get a high quality name, maybe it's a Joe Ryan, maybe it's somebody of that nature. And then you only need one more guy to make starts, because I think then, Tyler, what this Cubs team's really hoping for is that you can have Ben Brown, Justin Steele, Daniel Palencia, and whoever else you add at this deadline, all as bullpen pieces, where those guys can give you 2 and 3 innings sometimes. And you only need 5 out of your starters.
And the thing with Justin Steele is you could use him as a quote unquote opener, and it's not. It's for him in his mentality and his mindset and everything. He just treats it. It's just another start.
Yeah. And you could have a guy like Javier Assad come out of the pen as a kind of a piggyback from Colin Ray could do the same thing. I think the Cubs want to give themselves the ability to have a really creative bullpen potentially come the playoffs, because I really think that's going to, assuming that they're both fully healthy and ready to go, it's going to include both Ben Brown and Justin Steele, because neither one of them, I think, will have enough time to ramp up to actually start games.
I agree, for sure.
But I think they can come out and give you 2 innings every couple days. And in the playoffs, when you got all that rest, like that's where that really sets up for those guys to be super duper effective. And that's why I think you're not going to see them overcompensate and get 2 or 3 bullpen arms. Maybe they get 1, because I really think they're banking on it being kind of all right, who's not a quote unquote starter? You're a bullpen guy, and you're going to be nasty.
Not that it's a difference maker, but he is a body. They did just get Savali back from who was it? Sacramento.
Aaron Savali pitched really well with the Cubs last year too.
Yeah, he did. Is he the guy though that you're trusting? And he's probably, I don't know, does he make the playoff roster? We'll see, just based off injury, who's healthy and everything like that. I agree. I wish they've got to make another move for a starter. They really do. As for this team in the playoffs, you look at this pitching rotation and you think, who's the guy? Do they have that guy, that number one guy that you would put up whoever, in a game 1 or whatever, and they don't? Do they get that guy at the All-Star or at the trade deadline? Joe Ron's name would be nice. Mm-hmm. But like you're saying, Ron, I just don't see them. I don't know if they empty the farm for a Joe Ryan. A name that he hasn't been that good this year, but he does have history with Craig Counsell, is Freddie Peralta, and he only has 1 season. He's just on this 1 season. The problem with Freddie Peralta is he plays on the Mets. And part of me is telling myself, hey, the Mets are going to want redemption from that PCA trade. Mm-hmm. You're not getting Freddie Peralta from us for just nobody. They're going to ask for more than Javi Baez. I don't know. I don't know if they. I would love it. Again, he hasn't been that great. His numbers aren't that well this year. His savant's not that well. But is he a guy that changes sceneries, goes back to a familiar face in Craig Counsell, and becomes the Freddie Peralta we saw with Milwaukee? Possibly. Yeah. I wonder what that price is going to be, because again, the Mets which they made a trade just earlier this season for Peterson, but that's David Peterson. No offense to David Peterson. I can only imagine that for Freddie Peralta, we're going to ask a little bit more than just, your 15th best prospect or whatever.
100%. And I think, though, if you are the Cubs, the perfect case scenario is just doing business with one team and addressing 2 problems. And I think the Mets are the only team that really allows you to do that, because
they do.
not only do you have a Freddie Peralta who could address your starting pitching concern, but then you have names like Brooke Raley, like Luke Weaver, who would be really nice additions to the Cubs in their bullpen.
Dumb question. Is Clay Holmes in their bullpen now? Is he still starting games? Or
I think Holmes is still starting games.
Is he still starting?
But he's another name, you know.
He's another one that, yeah.
If you're the Cubs and you're willing to, you know, again, this is hypothetical. I'm sure somebody's going to climb down my throat in the comments section. But if you're willing to part ways with a Matt Shaw plus, I'm asking them for Holmes and Peralta. And maybe Luke Weaver. And you just get all three of those boys in here and see what they can do.
If it's, I agree with, I believe, was it Dan that was talking about Matt Shaw in the comments? I agree. I'm questionable about giving up Matt Shaw, but only if it's for the right package. And if it's a package that includes pieces that's going to fix this bullpen right now and help tremendously with the rotation, then as much as I'd hate to see Matt Shaw leave, I'm doing it.
Definitely.
Because again, not to bring up the future, not to bring up the BS that we're going to deal with next year. And it sucks because they just announced the All-Star game at Wrigley next year, but we have no clue what next season is going to be. Next season is more than likely 100% going to be a big, giant cluster F. Mm-hmm. And so it's like we said earlier this year, you go all out for this season and then just whatever happens, and you figure it out in 27 and 28.
Definitely. It's going to be fascinating to see how aggressive the Cubs can get at the deadline here, and depending on what they're going to give up. And I get it. You know, Shaw can play anywhere and his bat does play, but you know, where does he play every day? Now, granted, if you're looking at this as the Cubs and you're saying, well, Matt Shaw is one of our starting corner outfielders next year because Ian Happ and Seiya Suzuki are both free agents, then sure, maybe you can't trade him. But maybe then that's where a Moises Ballesteros becomes a trade chip. And you're potentially moving him.
That. Yeah. No, and it sucks because of the potential that Ballesteros has, but you know, if he's the guy that's going to get you that piece, I would trade. Call me crazy, but I would trade Ballesteros over Matt Shaw.
Yeah, I think Ballesteros, I think Pedro Ramirez, I think both of those guys are very likely to be traded at this deadline.
Well, hey, let me ask you a question then, because I asked the last show with Tommy, asked him a question because he was going to bring up something. I was like, before you ask me that, let me ask you this question. On August 3rd at 5:01 Central Time, Ron, will Matt Shaw and or Kevin Alcantara still be on this team?
Ooh, I think Alcantara's good as gone. I think he's also going to be involved in some trade package, and it might be like I'll take a swing out there and say this. I think the Cubs make 3 trades.
Okay.
At the deadline. I don't think they're all going to be big. I think one of them is going to be big, like a Mets for a Peralta and Weaver, or like a Holmes and Weaver type deal.
Agreed.
And then I think you're going to see them make 2 smaller ones. One's going to be a bench bat, and one's going to be maybe like a middle level reliever. I think they're going to make 3 trades. Okay. I think Kevin Alcantara goes in one of those other 2 deals. That's not the big deal. I think he's easily the guy they flip for a solid middle reliever who maybe has another year or 2 of control. And they just say, hey, we really don't have a place for you. And I know there's a lot of people that are going to be like, well, you know, bring him up and play him in right field every day next year if Seiya's gone. I don't think he gives them enough right now to replace what either Seiya Suzuki or Ian Happ is, frankly, even playing every single day. I think he's better off as a move piece.
For sure.
I think that's what a lot of these prospects are, because I think they had a good enough draft where they kind of recouped a little bit of that top of the farm value, and guys like Cade Townsend and Sorrell was a nice addition in the second round. The big slugger that they got in the compensation round. I mean, he's another great Bailey. He's another, great example of some talent they added. I think they can expend from some of these guys who have been around for a few years.
And with Alcantara, as much as I wanted him to be that Ronald Acuna 2.0, he's got his chances. He's had his chances, and he hasn't been the person. He hasn't been the guy that everybody expected him to be.
Bingo. You're 100% correct. And in fairness to him, right? I mean, he came over as a really young prospect in the Anthony Rizzo deal. at a time when, I mean, he was really only 18. Nobody really knew what he was going to be yet. The fact that he's gotten not only this far is a success story, right? Because as we always talk about, prospects are prospects till they're no longer prospects. But
For sure.
I think on a bad team where he can play every day and work through some of those issues, I think he could still become a regular big leaguer. But I just don't think the Cubs are going to be able to have the patience with that, given the window
Yeah.
that they have right now with
Agreed.
guys like Horner and Swanson and Bregman all locked up at key positions, and Bush is still under tons of years of control. PCA's under contract now for the foreseeable future. I just don't think these position playing, prospects have as much value to the Cubs. And if they can help you get some really notable guys that might stick around for a few years in terms of pitchers, I think it's certainly worth exploring those ideas. And then once
Sure.
free agency gets here, you figure it out with, your two corner outfield spots and kind of go from there. But that's just me. So we'll have to wait and see what happens. Tyler, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, it's going to be a crazy. As much as we want to see something happen now, it's going to be just like the past few seasons. It's going to be a crazy final 2 hours on August 3rd.
I certainly hope so. I enjoy the chaos of the deadlines.
I do too. I do too.
I
want to make moves early, I agree. I love the chaos. I do.
I also get really disappointed when like teams make trades days in advance of the deadline, and then the deadline itself is kind of underwhelming. Starting to see that around other sports in the in the world. Hockey's certainly gotten away from it, where deadline day is a shell of what it used to be. A lot of moves are made days in advance. The NBA is kind of that way too. The NFL, the NFL's trade deadline really isn't much of a trade deadline, just because players don't move like that in that sport. So it really is. You hope for that chaos with baseball, and I think more than ever, Tyler, because of the expanded playoff and the amount of teams that are still in it, I think this year more than ever should be an incredible deadline, because you've only got a handful of true sellers. I don't expect deals to get done early because of just the amount of people that are going to be knocking on everybody's door.
I think you could say 5 teams or less are sellers, and the other 25 teams still think they're either A, are in the playoffs, or B, think they have a legit shot. Everybody in the Central, AL Central, and even you could even say the NL Central. There's maybe 4 teams at this point that are legit sellers or should be sellers.
I'll tell you what, man. I look at this right now, and if it wasn't for their 1-9 stretch in their last 10, really the A's would be just as much in this conversation as well. Every team in the AL is within 4.5 games of the last wild card spot, except for the A's, the Royals, and the Angels. That's it in the AL.
And the crazy thing too is just 2 weeks ago we were talking about how the Cubs should trade for Sonny Gray and Aroldis Chapman. They're on a 12 or 13 game winning streak.
13.
They're not trading anybody. They're not getting rid of anybody, because they're holding the wild card spot, and they are have just as good a chance to make the playoffs in the AL as any of the other teams do. So they're not going anywhere.
I'll tell you what, Tyler, I think I need to get back to Wrigley, because the last baseball game I attended this year was at Fenway Park. And
you got to.
It was right at about the time that the Red Sox started to get hot. So maybe Ron and Katie Lou had something to do with that, being in attendance at Fenway. But man, they've been on a friggin' heater since about mid-June. And I mean, they're 2 games clear of 500, and they're firmly holding on to that final wild card spot right now in the AL. And Tyler, I mean, I look at the NL too, and it's largely the same conversation here. Every team in the NL is within 6 games of the NL wildcard spots, except for the Giants, the Mets, and the Rockies. And who knows how much the Giants are really going to move. We know they want to move, or at least they're interested in moving guys like Adames and maybe Chapman and Devers, and their big contracts. But I think the guys that teams are going to be most intrigued by, like a Logan Webb, for example, are guys that they aren't going to deal. So even if you take maybe the Giants away, at least for the Cubs, right? Maybe the Giants make trades with other teams that are willing to take on an Adames or somebody like that.
Yeah.
It's really down to the Mets, the Rockies, the Royals, the Angels, and maybe the A's. I mean, it's kind of slim pickings, unless some of these teams that are kind of holding on to the edge here maybe decide that they can flip some guys and still, see what happens there. Darren with a quick comment here. He says, the minor leaguer, first, third, long. Yes. Is he still tearing it up? Could see him as a trade chip. He's been pretty good. I know he was a little banged up this year, especially early in the year. They still have a lot of minor league talent that they can move, and really move a fair amount of it without, I think, doing any detrimental damage to the state of the farm. So it'll be really interesting, I think, to see how they operate at this coming deadline when it's all said and done, man. But
for sure,
Tyler, the other note I have from this weekend that I think we still need to address before we look ahead to this Tiger series is the 2016 team being in attendance. They unveiled the 2016, the gate. I think that's a great idea. I forget who it was that made a comment on it. It might have been Matt Lindner. I think Cubs fans are pretty familiar with him, about just like, it's better than, I think, a statue, because the statue, no matter who they did it for, or what picture they use, like guys would be left out that were a huge part of that.
It wasn't going to be the right one. Yeah.
Right. So the gate is kind of a hey, this is forever entrenched as a part of Wrigley Field. This team is always going to be remembered as one of the best teams in baseball ever. I think they did a great job. I think the guys being in attendance was awesome. I know they, checked in with them throughout the broadcast, and we're talking to David Ross and talking to Rizzo.
I thought that was awesome.
Oh yeah, and then you factor in, PCA getting to ask a question at the Lovable Reunion Live on Thursday night as a fan, because he was a fan of that 2016 team.
That was awesome.
I think the whole way that they celebrated the 2016 team this year, with it being the 10-year anniversary, and obviously what they've done with the Lovable Reunion kind of being on the side as a supplementary piece to that, has been fantastic. And I think it was a great weekend. And then they got a series win out of it too, which is pretty awesome to have a good weekend at the ballpark on top of it as well.
I mean, the one game they had to win for sure Saturday was just, And the way, which, by the way, the ending of that game, how crazy that the ending was with that double play.
Yeah.
But I love how, at least with the with the gate that they with the gate that was made, I love how they also paid homage to the other championship teams as well. They included them as well. But the in-game interviews and stuff was awesome. Don't you think it's crazy? I love it that David Ross, who recently got, just a few seasons ago, was fired, and could have easily just said, you know what, I've got my 3 rings, I've got my money, I don't need any of this. You guys fired me, blah blah blah. Could have easily just packed up and left and just not screw all this. And he has just completely done the exact opposite, and I love it, because I love hearing his stories. I love just every time on the Lovable Reunion episodes that I've watched, every one of them have just been he's created so many awesome memories, so many things that none of us knew, like the recent one with Theo, talking about how they talked about postponing Game 7 for the next day.
Yeah.
Crazy stuff like that. But no, man, it was just awesome. And then just the lap, the almost like the victory lap that Anthony Rizzo, Dexter Fowler, and I think, who was it, Jason Hayward, all 3 of them took in the game just to walk around the stadium and do all that. Man, that was awesome. And hey, we've got to get Anthony Rizzo in the stands every game, pretty much.
I'm saying
we have to.
He needs to be at Wrigley as much as humanly possible. There's something, I mean, genuinely, and this was always how I felt, even the early years of doing Cubs on Tap and the later years of those golden years, was he was the closest thing I think that this franchise has had to a Mr. Cub since Ernie Banks. Sure. He owned was here during the lows and the highs, and was one of the longest tenured Cubs, and just became such a pillar in the community. I mean, he was, that energy continues to rub off on this organization even 10 years later after, the championship, and even 5 years later after he was dealt and went to the Yankees and now has since retired. Man, I think, I agree. I think he needs to be in the stadium as often as humanly possible, because a lot of good things happen for the Cubs when he is. And
for sure,
it's always.
I mean, he's a guy you definitely. I mean, you'd love for him to be an ambassador, at the very least, an ambassador for the team.
He is an ambassador now, technically, for the team.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a guy that you'd love to just constantly have in the clubhouse. I know, yeah, newer father, definitely has a lot of other things on his plate, but man, he's a guy that any opportunity that you can get him at the ballpark, get him in the clubhouse, get him around the guys. Man, it just shows not just him, but just all of them. It just shows the value of good team chemistry, whether it's with David Ross and Anthony or Joe Madden.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody likes to, before all this, everybody likes to, would like to crap on, Joe Madden about it, the way he managed and blah, blah, blah. It's like, buddy, he is one of the greatest just managers of people in the history of not just sports, but just everything.
He really is. And you hear so much of how important Joe Madden was to that 2016 team from those guys. Like every single episode of the Lovable Reunion, there's three constants in every Lovable Reunion episode. It's not about Anthony Rizzo.
Yep.
Some joke about David Ross being a bench guy.
Yep.
And how much those guys mention Joe Madden as such a critical piece of the team dynamic. Those are the three constants in every single episode, no matter who they talk to. And it just goes to show, like, yeah, in hindsight, it's easy to sit there and, Monday morning quarterback Joe Madden's decisions. But when he was taking all the deflection from the press on him, when he's letting these guys just be who they are, right? Making sure the clubhouse is loose, and is fun. Like, that's all incredibly important. And you saw why as a result of them winning the championship and certainly that, everything that has followed and what they've done with that as well. A quick comment here as well from Darren. He says, if there's ever a pro athlete coach manager that he owes an apology to, it's Rossi. What a class act. Yeah. I mean, he's been awesome to, even with being fired by the organization, like he still holds the organization high regards. And I think they feel the same about him. And, it's just one of those things where, sometimes things don't work out the way you want them to, but, I think David Ross still has a huge place in the lore of what Cubs baseball is for really eternity, just based on how things have played out. Tyler, let's talk a little bit here about what's to come next. The Cubs stay in Chicago. It was probably an awesome night for those guys tonight. You get a win, and then you get more than 24 hours before you have to be back at the ballpark. It's a 7:05 start on Monday night. You got the Detroit Tigers, another AL Central team, coming to Wrigley Field. That's a 3-game series. Worth noting in this series, Monday and Tuesday's broadcasts are on Marquee Sports Network. Those are 7:05 starts. It's a 7:10 start on Wednesday, and the reason for that is because it is an ESPN nationally televised game. So keep that in mind when you're searching for the Cubbies and Tigers on Wednesday night. And then I believe they have an off day on Thursday, which is when we'll be back on these airways, at least in a live capacity, before they hit the road and keep taking care of business here as July wanes on. And Big One, I think puts it pretty correct here. He says he loves Rossi, but it was unfortunate the council was the right move. It's kind of like what happened with Joe Madden. I think Ricky Renteria did plenty with that 2014 team to earn himself another year as manager. It just so happened that Joe Madden became available and was the right decision, and that's ultimately where they went. And I think Ricky Renteria got a fair shake with. I think he was a really solid manager for the White Sox in those rebuild years. They played hard for him and were entertaining. And then, you've seen some of the debacles that the White Sox have hired since. I think he was a good manager. But again, it just sucks. Again, timing's everything when it's all said and done. Tyler, any final thoughts? Any thoughts for this upcoming Tiger series before we go ahead and sign off?
Final thoughts. I like Ron Dempster on the broadcast. I like Ron Dempster and
I do
Alex
too.
Going together. I loved it. I thought they were great. I loved the stories. I loved he had a lot of stories of guys that me and you grew up watching. Mm-hmm. And no offense to JD and the other guys, he just had a lot of good stories. As far as this Tiger series, man, dumb question. Are we seeing Scooble on Wednesday?
Let me confirm that while you talk.
I will say this is not going to be an easy series. You've got a Tigers team that I feel like has won their last 12 or 14 games or something like that. They're on a nice little streak as well. They're a team that is easily competing in that AL Central as well. There's not a bad team in that division right now. Um, you're going to have to put it to him offensively for sure. I mean, Nico's going to have to continue to do what he's doing. Hopefully, PCA can step it up a little bit. He had a nice hit today. And Michael Bush, Alex Bregman, those three guys, we talked about at the beginning of the show. Those three guys are going to have to, and everybody else as well. But yeah, it's a team that you cannot take lightly just because you see Tigers and think, oh, it's the Tigers. Well, no, it's the Tigers, and they're pretty good.
Yep, they're pretty good. They're still very much in it for the AL Central. Don't be fooled by the 46-53 record. I mean, they're still in a place to potentially make the AL postseason here as a part of it as well. And yeah, Jay says it here. We do not see Skubal in this series. He does not pitch until Thursday. It'll actually be a familiar face on Monday for the Tigers. It's Jack Flaherty taking the bump against Jameson Taillon on Tuesday. Ethan Roberts is currently listed as the Cubs starter because it would be the equivalent of a bullpen day. So we'll see, right? I mean, things can change between now and then. If somebody's healthy and they make an IL activation or whatnot, that'll be something to keep an eye on. But he is expected to go up against Framber Valdez on Tuesday. Valdez not having a great year by his standards, a 4.10 ERA so far. And then Wednesday, it will be Colin Ray taking on Montero, who's been pretty good this year, 3.22 ERA for the Tigers. So he'll pitch Wednesday in that series finale against the Motor City Kitties.
Is there
for the Cubs?
Did I see something earlier today about a Jameson Taillon return soon?
He's pitching tomorrow.
Oh, you done said that. Sorry,
no, you're good. Yeah, Taillon's the projected starter for the Cubbies tomorrow. So
he's a guy, Ron. I mean, I get it. Is he going to throw you 6-7 innings tomorrow? Probably not. But he is a guy that he's going to have to show us something. He's going to have to show us more than what he's shown us in the first half of the season, where he led the league in home runs. He's got to keep the ball in the ballpark. I know that's easier said than done with Jameson. With that being said, he's going to have to limit the base runners, if anything. The home run's coming sometime. Hopefully, it's a solo home run.
Yeah, definitely. I think if you could see a Jameson Taillon get right in kind of the same sequence of what we've seen out of Shota Imanaga over the last 6 starts now, where first off, I think also Shota going 7, incredibly important with having Taillon on the bump on Monday, knowing that you might need to go a little deeper into your bullpen. I agree. I think Jameson Taillon understands they need a lot from him too, especially with the amount of injuries in the rotation. And he's also a free agent after the season. He's going to want to get at least one more contract somewhere.
Yeah.
He's pitching for his next I think if we're being completely fair, if it is the guys that the Cubs have right now as starters that are your guys that they've kind of leaned on all year in the sense of Shota and Taillon potentially now and Boyd, these are all guys playing for another contract. And there's no better motivation in the world for a player than that next contract. So hopefully that's the type of rebound that they get out of him. Because I agree. I think they need a lot out of Jameson Taillon down the stretch here. He needs to be at least dependable. He doesn't need to be elite. He just needs to be dependable. So that way they can get into August and September and hopefully start to get some of these other guys back healthy and really round out this pitching staff for what's hopefully a postseason run for the Cubbies again in 2026. Tyler, as always, want to encourage everybody to head over to ontapsportsnet.com and at ontapsportsnet on the socials. Head over to the YouTube channel, OnTap Sportsnet. Like and subscribe. Hit that little bell button, and you'll know when all of our shows go live, including us here at Cubs on Tap. Four Feathers was just live yesterday regarding the Connor Bedard extension. He's locked in for 5 years now. You can check out that show there. Our Center Cup guys are always talking golf all summer long, so be sure to check them out as well. And, of course, Sox on Tap, Bulls on Tap, and Bears on Tap also there as well. OnTapSportsNet.com, at OnTapSportsNet on the socials, and check out what's on tap in Chicago sports. Tyler, it's always good to talk with you after a Cubs series victory. They take 2 out of 3 from the Twins. Another AL Central team awaits Monday through Wednesday with the Tigers. We're back on Thursday for another live show, but be on the lookout for any podcast-only drops over the course of the week and, of course, over the course of the rest of the season. Tyler, what do you say we get out here? Do we know how Cubs on tap?
F the Cardinals, as always.
Always. And the Motor City Kitties. And let's go Cubs.
And the Motor City Kitties.